Welcome to www.thebig4accountingfirms.com podcast. Today we're going to discuss PwC's recent acquisition of the GE tax department. On January 12th, 2017, PwC announced that they acquired the GE tax department. This includes hiring 600 employees from GE as well as acquiring tax technology from GE. PwC said in the announcement that this is going to help them with their tax function of the future service offering. Now, tax function of the future is something that PwC has been pushing for a while. They've been pushing this out to their clients, and they essentially want clients to write a blank check for the tax department. Tax function of the future isn't one thing; it's all things. They want to be able to tell clients, this is the right number of employees to have in your tax department. This is the type of technology to have in your tax department. Ideally, what they want is clients to say, okay, we want to invest in our tax function of the future, where PwC comes in, does an assessment, tells them the number of people to hire, the technology to implement, and PwC has their own technology called Tax Operations Manager, which they would like their clients to buy as part of this tax function of the future. And that's why I think as part of this GE announcement, it was interesting that they acquired the technology from GE as well, because I think that's going to be something they utilize as part of this acquisition, is taking that technology, saying, hey, GE, one of the best companies in the world, had this technology. You should, hire us to implement it and go from there. And that's where I think things stop making sense about this deal. It makes sense for PwC to acquire the tax technology from GE and implement it at their clients. What doesn't make sense is for PwC to hire 600 people at this time. If you look back at our previous post this year about PwC's revenue, their growth was not good compared to the other big four firms. So if your revenue isn't that great, especially due to headcount, then you don't go ahead and hire a bunch more people hoping that they'll generate more revenue. PwC already had the largest tax group out of the big four, and yet that didn't significantly grow their revenues last year. So hiring 600 more people is not going to increase the ability to generate revenue. I mean, it will, because you have some key people inside of that acquisition, but as a whole, there's going to be many people that come over from GE that aren't going to be able to generate revenue. And the other thing that was said in this announcement is that these employees are essentially going to still be working on GE. So essentially what PwC did is take over the cost of GE's tax department. And they're going to, how I assume it's going to work, is that it's probably a fixed fee engagement for 5 years, because the deal is announced as a 5-year deal, at the end of which PwC and GE will assess whether they're going to continue it. If it's a fixed time period, I think it's probably also a fixed fee arrangement. The reason I say this is because what happens if these GE employees flee? There's a mass exodus. You whittle 600 people down to 200 or 300. So you thought you were going to bill GE, like let's say if it was a variable engagement based on hours. It seems great if you have 600 employees and you're able to charge GE for 600 employees' hours every quarter, every year. But if there's a mass exodus, then, your revenues are going to plummet from PwC, and they really got a raw deal. There's also other information in this release that said that GE came to PwC with this idea over a year ago, which means that PwC has been chewing on this for a year and didn't implement it until now. What that says to me is that, GE finally forced this upon PwC, because what can take a year, But what I know from, inside information from PwC and inside information from GE is that GE has been spinning off departments and business units as part of the SIFI regulation. They don't want to fall under the SIFI regulation. They don't want to be regulated because of the size of the company. Because of that, they've been systematically getting rid of departments. Every time they have to get rid of a division, they have to get rid of the people related to that, right? And that includes the tax department. Instead of having to take that on themselves, it'd be ideal to obviously give that to a service provider, or give all your tax employees to a service provider and have them get rid of the employees. And I think 5 years is probably also a key metric for not just for PwC and for these employees, but for GE. What that tells me is GE is planning to finish all their, what that says to me is that GE plans to finish all this divestitures and get over this SIFI stuff in 5 years. And then what I think will happen will be that most of the GE employees that wanted to leave will have left, and then GE will bring back these employees in-house. That's what it looks like on face, because overall this deal doesn't make sense, because you're going to have all these GE employees floating out sort of in a no man's land for 5 years. How are they supposed to stay motivated? You don't know where you stand, whether you're going to be a PwC employee for life or a GE employee for life, and you don't know that for 5 years. And there's obviously some really talented people within the GE tax department. You know, if I'm close to retirement or I'm a really well-known person, why would I stay in this limbo unless I'm really well compensated and have some guarantees? Or, you know, maybe that's not even worth it because I don't know whether I'm going to get ultimately cut. I just go work for somebody else that's willing to pay me a lot more. And another thing is that how are PwC's employees supposed to stay motivated? The staff, the managers and the senior managers that will be now held back by this, because in the press release, PwC is saying that these GE employees will be taken to clients and be utilized on their existing clients. Now that's work that would have previously been done by existing PwC employees that now will be done by GE employees. So if I'm a senior manager or a manager in one of these industries affected by this, then why would I stay? You know, PwC has been aggressive in acquiring partners also. So it's the PwC gets more and more top heavy. If I'm a current manager or senior manager, what's the motivation to stay at PwC? Now I have some inside information on this from one of my contacts that PwC is saying that these GE employees will only do GE work. Now that's contrary to the release, but that's obviously a little bit of internal brainwashing they've got going on, telling their employees, please don't leave, don't worry, these people aren't going to take your jobs. All the while they're telling the public something different. So I think it'll be very interesting to see how this whole PwC GE acquisition ends up and who benefits the most. I think GE is the smarter of the two companies here, and they're going to reap all the benefits of this. And if I was a PwC employee in one of the affected industries, such as financial services and the industry groups, then I'd be very worried. But you're just going to have to stay tuned to the news and stay tuned to this podcast. Make sure to subscribe. And also, if you want to hear more, make sure to give us a good review on iTunes. Visit our website, www.big4accountingfirms.com, and subscribe to our newsletter. That's all we have for today. Thanks again.